Hey, how you doing?
Hey, good. How are you, Deshaun?
Good, good. I was like, good morning. It's like pretty early for you though, actually, right?
Yeah, it's like 8:30 here.
I feel like I always get that wrong. Like, what is it? Is it 2 or 3 hours?
2 hours.
Two
Two
hours.
hours. But I always think you're Central Time.
I know. And then we get just mixed up all the time in our scheduling.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank God for your scheduling app is unbelievable, by the way. It's like, so thank
Thank
God for
you.
that. So, well, awesome. Thanks. Well, we had to reschedule, so thanks for making, the time to do this. Um, I do a really bad job of introducing people that like come on. And so, new
Okay.
year, we're starting the pod pretty fresh. I'm going to give you a very glowing, like, who you are and what you mean to me.
Okay.
How about that?
Great.
Sound
I'm
good?
I'm
And
actually
then,
really excited to hear this.
yeah, as I say, then you can fill in gaps and help me, make it sound better.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so it's funny too. So Aaron and I have been officially working together for 3 years in December. Just passed it. You probably didn't
Yeah.
even like see that or notice that, did you?
No, I didn't, but that makes
Yep,
sense.
3 full years. So Aaron is my financial advisor. And to be honest, Aaron, like I feel like I have to give you more credit than just being my financial advisor. I joke with Sammy all the time, like Aaron is my performance coach. Like therapist, performance coach, financial advisor, all packed in one. So that is a credit to you for being above and beyond what you're actually called to do for me.
Thank you.
Does that was pretty good?
That's pretty good. Uh yeah, we do a lot of therapy sessions
I
as
was gonna say,
financial
did I
planners.
miss any other, I guess, compliments that you provide to me
No,
as a
no, I think that's perfect.
awesome. All right. Well, tell the group and listeners and everyone around it, what brought you into the world of financial advising?
Oh man, such an unexpected story. So my education, by education, I'm a biomedical and mechanical engineer. Um, I had every intention of going and working in med device, and I did for a really short period of time, but ended up in a job where really I hated my job, I hated my boss, and I didn't have any super close coworkers either, so there wasn't
You were in an
there
engineering.
I was in a product management role, so I knew coming out of college I didn't want to be an engineer, but I wanted to use my technical background, so they put me as sort of a cross-functional role between engineers and like sales and marketing, which I was really excited about, and then it ended up not being what I wanted it to be. So, uh, around around the time I started to realize I was actually unhappy, and it wasn't just like growing pains in a new job. My now husband and I became clients of a financial planner, and just clicked with her. She was super awesome. I always thought financial planners were like for 50-year-olds who like had 3 million, like millions of dollars to invest. And Trish was her name. She's like this young, spunky, cool chick, and her and I really clicked. And then just through my conversation with her, I told her how miserable I was at my job, how I didn't have any clarity on what I wanted to do differently. Um, and she told me she was introducing me to a career coach, which I didn't know was code for recruiter. So,
Oh,
uh,
didn't either.
yeah, yeah. So she introduced me to a career coach who like conveniently coached me into going through all the licensure and training to try out being running my own financial planning book of business, and that was 5 years ago, and never looked back after that. So I I don't know why once I started, I never thought I've never had a moment where I thought I would do something different.
Yep.
Um, I couldn't tell
Well,
you
every
why
time,
that
so
is, but
every time I do a new episode, I get reminded of why A, I call this Tomorrow's Voices,
mhm.
and B, just like the concept around the entire podcast. Because the way you describe that to me is just the same way that we all go through our younger years, get out of college, you go do what you think you're supposed to do, and giving this is a podcast to give back to Tomorrow's Voices because
Yeah.
if we would have this information about like people who are younger like ourselves who
Yeah.
have gone through it, it would help and provide some feedback. Like so, I want to take even a step back further. When you were in high school,
Okay.
what did your parents want you to be?
Oh my God. Um, well, you should know that as a kid, I was a really good kid. I didn't break the rules.
Yep.
I was a full-time athlete, full-time student, and still
Very
worked.
driven. Parents probably
Very
didn't need to push you.
didn't need to push me, didn't, I was also very defiant. If I
I was
was,
literally going to say that word, but I didn't want to take
yeah,
it from you.
no, I was like I was a good kid, but if you put me in a situation I didn't want to be in,
Against the wall, you're like, no.
yeah, yeah. So, um, I I knew from an early age I wanted to be an engineer, which I think probably also contributes to it. I had a physics teacher in high school who taught me physics in relationship to gymnastics, and I was a gymnast for 18 years. So I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. And so that's
Yeah.
what led me to becoming a biomedical engineer. So I knew probably when I was like 15 or 16 that that was kind of the direction I was headed. So my parents never really had a path they wanted me to take. I was also just maybe they just knew I wasn't going to listen to them. So
It's a little the same way, to be honest. I mean,
yeah,
obviously
I
you
could
did.
see that. I could see that.
But I guess my mom didn't really push me like one way or the other either.
Yeah,
But I just feel like there's like, okay, that's actually another good example of like there's influences on what you should do based on
yeah,
someone around you, right? And for you was your physics
right.
teacher. And so like that's why I'm always curious because I feel that is 10 out of 10 people is that they started their careers or went to college for something that someone else influenced them by versus getting to
Yeah,
truly know themselves and being a little more data driven about, hey, this is what I should study, these are the career outcomes, and this is what I should do. And it's
yeah.
just like the whole reason we started a platform. So um that's good. So like let's go to that first interview.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the first job, and you're unhappy. You talk to the recruiter.
Yep.
Um, I'm sure there's still doubts about like, can I be a financial advisor? Because I always thought like financial advisors were just like, to your point, very like they got advanced degrees. They're like
Yeah.
super pointed and structured, and there's just like all this, I don't know, all these things that you're like, you would probably doubt yourself about. So like, how did you how did you overcome those doubts initially?
Oh, um, you know, I think going back to being defiant as a kid has carried into being me as an adult a little bit. And as I started to learn more, so the way the process works if you become a financial advisor is you essentially go through like a lot of different personality tests to see like
Oh,
are you a good fit for I mean it's such a relationship driven business.
yeah,
Are you a good fit for that? And are you a good fit for a world where you don't have consistent income? Everything you do, you work, you make money, you don't work, you don't make money. You're running a business, you have to hire people. Like, do you have the personality and the skill set built for that? Is kind of
yeah,
the first thing they determine. Um, Once they determine that, they start to kind of help you understand, like, here's how it's structured, here's how you get paid, here's what it looks like in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, so on and so forth. And what I quickly learned is that young women are not they're not star players in this industry. And I don't think it's because they can't be. I think they just like historically haven't been. Um,
yeah, and that they don't see themselves that way.
yeah,
If you
exactly.
don't see yourself reflected in the work or in that environment, you
Right.
naturally think, "Am I not meant to be in this environment?"
For sure. And so through some of those conversations and then through learning about like, hey, here are the metrics that dictate success in your first year. Your first year as a financial advisor is really make or break because it's the most new clients you'll bring on that kind of sets the foundation for everything else you do. And I just had a seed planted of like, come hell or high water, I was going to do what everybody didn't think a young 24-year-old could do in this career. And so I think I was just on a mission to prove everybody wrong.
For sure.
Um, and it worked. But I mean, it's interesting because that's how it started. And then I've spent enough time in this job now that it changes over time to where you like really start to feel the impact and really build
Yeah.
relationships that are really meaningful. And so it's taken a much deeper meaning than that, but that's probably what led to fast success and overcoming any sort of doubts I would have otherwise had.
Yeah. And I think you left out one because I think there is something about you specifically that differentiates you from really anyone, male or female, to be honest. And I think that you treat your process and the way you consult like a high level sales executive. And I found that really interesting when we first met. And I was like, man, I've never had that kind of a call. And so, like, I think we all, me, I'm a very driven person and I'm going to
Yeah.
do the things that I'm probably going to do. I think we all need someone that's going to push us in like our respective lives, whether it's personally, professionally, financially. And like, obviously, you're my financial pusher. And you have an ability to push with value.
Thank you.
And you're like, hey, you need to do this based on everything I know about you and the things that you're insecure about, the things that trouble you at night, and what I think you should do long term. Based on these things, you need to do this. Not like, hey,
Yeah.
maybe you should. You're like, no, you need to do this. This is what you need
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like people don't respond to that well, as you probably get a lot, but it needs to happen. And I feel like that is why you are a top performer at Northwestern Mutual. What do you
Thank
think?
you. It's such an it's so fun to hear your perspective on this.
I feel like I've never
I
really told you this. I mean, we're just
No,
doing
you
this
haven't.
on the
Yeah, no,
cuff.
this is fun. This is fun to hear your perspective on
Yeah,
this. And I value your perspective too. So,
I
um,
appreciate it.
what I will say is it's something I've gotten better at over the last 5 years, but through my experience with different people, what I've learned is the more straightforward I am, the better it is received. Um, financial planners, financial advisors, we fall into the same category as like lenders, real estate agents, CPAs. We all kind of fall into this like service.
Yeah,
We're selling our services. Um, and it can very easily feel salesy. Even if that's not the intention, even if the intention is like, hey, I'm trying to build a long-term relationship to help you with your financial goals. Um, being being a little like like beating around the bush a little bit, or trying to be cognizant of like, am I going to offend them? Am I going to say something they don't want to hear? That presents far more salesy, and far less genuine. And
inauthentic.
so,
Yeah, for sure.
yes, exactly.
Yeah,
And at the end of the day, like what you realize over time is like people hire me to tell them what to do with their money. So I need to tell them what to do with their
they.
money.
It's funny though because they don't want to
Yeah.
be told. They're talking to you
Yeah.
because they want to be told.
Yeah.
It is
And
the weirdest.
so,
It's just the weirdest thing.
yeah, there's the other things that I've learned over time in this job is one, that is one thing that women especially do very well. If you were going, if you're having this same exact financial planning conversation with a guy who's your age, or let's say within 10 years of your age,
Yeah,
that is a different,
like
it's
I may not
received.
receive it well, is what you're
You
saying.
may not receive it well. It's just
Yeah,
I can look someone dead in
it's
the
definitely
eye.
me. It's me.
Yeah. When I do that, it comes across as like, oh, she's confident, she's very sure of herself, she means what she says.
That's a
It,
good perspective.
I think guys have to have a little bit of a different art to it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Because I think, yeah, like sometimes no matter what, if I'm talking to your point, someone like 10 years younger than me or within my age, and like I have friends or whoever calls me or people that want
yeah.
mentorship, and I tell them like, hey, no, this is what you need to do if you want to cross over to like whatever you feel like you need to cross over to. and it just like every time I say it or say whatever I'm going to say, I'm like, man, that didn't sound good.
It
Like,
just,
even though it was the
yeah,
truth, like they probably didn't receive that well. I don't
yeah,
sound good, and sometimes I just like to your point, it's just tone, whatever
yeah.
it is, right? Or
It,
do whatever that person's feeling in that moment. If they're down,
yeah,
just try to do a better job of just not like reading the room of like how that person's tone is
yeah,
and changing my delivery based on that because
yeah.
Sammy would Sammy is she's like you have the same delivery to everyone and not everyone can
You,
take that
yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
like you're so right
yeah.
so working on that 2025.
Okay, okay, good. The last piece of that I wanted to add to, I have had, so for context, my parents have worked with the same advisor for 20 years, and he is a very good friend of mine. And so for the last 5 years, I've sat in on all of their financial planning meetings, and I have
Oh, nice.
watched, yeah, I've watched him transition my parents into retirement, which is like a
Wow,
really, as you can imagine, a really
that's
key
like
part
full
of,
circle. Yeah,
yeah, full circle. It's one of the biggest parts of financial planning.
yeah,
And to sit in
that's how
those
you're planning for.
meetings, right? Yeah, yeah. Um, to sit in those meetings and like watch their financial planner say things like, "Will, like, don't go to work anymore. Like, you're earning money that's not yours. You have enough. Like, you're earning money that you just might
It's
as
just
well."
crazy.
Yeah, and so it's like my parents got to retire earlier than expected. And the craziest thing is, this is a very, he's what we would consider like a very high level financial advisor. He works with high net worth individuals. And my parents are considered A-plus clients to him. And my parents are not high net worth individuals. My dad retired making 180, and my mom worked part-time ever since I was born. Like that,
Hmm.
in the grand scheme of things, is
Yeah,
probably
that's
not
just
what most
discipline
people,
and
right?
resilience over a long
And
period of time.
that's what I realized is like they're A-plus clients and they're retiring early, not because they made crazy amounts of money or hit it big or invested in something or sold a business, but because every single year they saved money into all the right places that he told them to
Yeah.
save money
Would you
into.
say that is the single largest misconception?
1,000%.
Because I was going to ask you, but like to me, that just jumps out. I feel like that is because that was for me
Yeah,
when you reached out. I was like, initially 3 years ago, I was like, why
yeah,
would I? Why would I need a financial advisor? I'm like 27 or like I don't know how old I was, 28,
yeah,
and it probably should have happened earlier.
yeah. It's such a it's honestly such a frustrating thing as a financial advisor because
Yeah, I could see
I
that.
have I have so many
Everyone thinks that way.
conversations. The number of half my day I spend with people in their 40s and 50s who all tell me, I wish I did this earlier. I wish I knew you when I was
No,
younger.
if you did 10 surveys, 10 out
Yeah,
of 10 people would say
10
that,
out
no
of
matter
10,
what they have saved.
1,000%.
Yeah.
And then I get introduced to people who are in their 20s and 30s, and it is like pulling teeth, getting them to save
No.
what they should be saving. And what I try so hard to hammer home to them is like, I'm telling you to do something a little bit uncomfortable now to save you from the conversation that's going to happen in your 40s if we don't make a change today.
No. And so, but here's the thing I feel like everyone is saying, so I think where the challenge is at that age
Yeah.
group, everyone's saying that to them. They're seeing it
Oh,
on,
yeah.
yeah, they're seeing it on infomercials, they're seeing it on Instagram and TikTok and
Yeah.
all these things, right? And so, because I've thought about this, like, how do you navigate that, right? Like, just like, hey, I know this is emotional for you. You got student loans, you have, you want to save for a house, you're trying to do all these things that require so much cash up front. But hey, I need to put at least 10% in my retirement when like I'm 25. Like, where do you derive the value of doing getting someone to get across that finish line? To just start.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it all starts with the conversation, a lot of the same conversation that you and I are having. And one thing I continue to get better at is the more conversations I have with people in their 40s and 50s, the more conviction I have when I talk to a 30-year-old about what's going on.
Yeah.
To look a 30-year-old in the eye and say, hey, I know, and well, so to look a 30-year-old in the eye and say, hey, I know that this is uncomfortable. I know it's not what you want to do. But last week I had a conversation with someone who's 40 who makes more money than you do, and they can't save enough money to retire by 65. like there's not enough
Yeah.
money in their cash flow to do that. That's a way worse conversation than, hey, I know you don't want to save an extra $500 a month, but it's gonna change your life in the long run because you're only 30. And
Yeah.
that compounded over so many years. So it's a lot of just trying to educate them in understanding the long-term impacts of the things they do today. I do also think it's really important to acknowledge our generation, especially maybe probably even more so the generation behind us,
Yeah.
is suffering. We're suffering so much financially because of the things we see on social media.
100%.
Um,
Too much
and
information.
too much
One.
information. It's everything from, like, our keeping version of keeping up with the Joneses is amplified. So
Oh,
we
it's horrible.
spend more money on travel and nice
Yeah.
things. And how many stories do you hear on TikTok that go viral, or Instagram
Yeah.
videos that spread like wildfire because somebody did something with real estate or some sort of investment in something obscure, and they hit the jackpot and now they're retired at 45. And then people get caught up on this idea of like,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find my jackpot.
To make that one trade that will get me,
Yeah.
to where I need to get to. I
Yeah.
think one perspective from like me working with you and just, obviously seeing and doing more research as we've been working together. I think if you can paint the picture to those individuals, and I know this is still hard, but seeing the first compound interest hit.
Mm.
So like I
Oh
started
man.
young, not too young, maybe like 25, about 26 in my retirement. And I just hit that like 7, 8 year in, and I saw that first compound like interest hit. And
Yeah.
I was like, whoa. You just look at it and one day you look up and you're like, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Like there's no way what I contributed got to that. So like how did that happen? And then I feel like there's that light bulb moment. You like realize that like if you get enough in by like 30 and nothing crazy happens to you, no loss of job for a long time, no family
Yeah.
sick, and you wait, you're going to be good like regardless.
Yeah. I mean, the best perspective I can give people is the wealthiest individuals I know are just people who were diligent savers over time.
100%.
They didn't do anything crazy to get there. They just were consistent and they just trusted the process.
Yep.
It's like your career. If you
Yeah.
go to work every day and work hard, you're gonna go places. If you wake up every day and work out and eat healthy, over time you're gonna live a longer, happier, healthier
Yeah.
lifestyle. Um, and there's no shortcut to that, which,
Yep.
is the theme across all generations. I mean,
No.
there's a famous quote from, I don't know it exactly, but there's a famous quote from Warren Buffett about like that, Warren Buffett is one of the wealthiest men alive, and all he did was like consistently invest every single year.
Yeah,
Like that,
for sure.
there's no
I just
secret.
think the problem is like to your point, like the younger group, they're like, they just can't see past like they're like, yeah, he's Warren Buffett though, like, or like he or
Yeah,
she's like, older and like I'll never get there, and it's like you can, but you have to be consistent. And
yeah,
I think we all like personally struggle with being just I mean, I guess not consistent like investing, but just like consistent overall as a person. Like
yeah,
it is hard to be consistent year over year, or like your parents, like year
yeah.
over year over year.
Every year.
That takes some diligence,
It does.
and it's hard.
It's and it's in my opinion, that's the number one value add that financial planners have. I know,
Yep.
like I have a lot of clients who work in investment banking, who work at Ernst and Young or big firms, who know all the ins and outs of investing and finance, and they still hire me to manage their money
Yeah.
because they know that finances are emotional. And
Yes.
having a third party person who's not emotionally invested in your money is key to
Yep.
financial success. I have a different advisor who manages me and Jeff's money because
Yep.
I talk
Well,
about this stuff all
it
day.
doesn't make sense for you. Yeah, exactly. You're emotionally invested, and you can't optimize
No.
for what you need to do because you're wrapped in it, right? Like that's your,
Yeah.
Yeah, those dollars, you're like, I work for those dollars. I don't know if I want to like put them there or there.
Hmm.
There. Like, it's just like you need, I think everyone needs a coach. I think that's the summary of this.
Yeah,
Like, everyone needs a personal coach, a career coach, and a financial coach. If I can just
yeah,
narrow down to three, because any great player in any sports, I love my sports analogies.
yeah,
Like Kobe, Jordan, all of them, right? They had great coaches that got the
yeah,
best out of them.
yeah,
And you have to listen to your coach, which, as you know, sometimes I'm a little hard headed, but you usually get to me.
yeah,
And so I think that's the big takeaway. It's like, you got to have a coach and listen to your coach.
yeah.
Simply put. What would you say is the biggest misconception about Northwestern Mutual?
Oh, I've got a good one.
You can give a couple if you want. That's fine.
I'll give a couple. Northwestern Mutual advisors are structured differently than other financial firms. And my hunch just from talking to other people in the industry is like every firm is a little bit different,
Yeah.
but I don't work for Northwestern Mutual. Northwestern Mutual does not employ me. Northwestern Mutual is my broker dealer, which means I have my own independent book of business that Northwestern Mutual does not own. And
Hmm.
I choose to use them as my broker dealer, which what that means is like you'll see my email as Northwestern Mutual, my marketing, my research, all the stuff I have access to is filtered through them. And the reason I do that is because they're a Fortune 90 company. So their research materials and resources and things like that they have a lot more money than I would on my own to do those things.
Yeah.
Um, they also have one of the strictest compliance departments, which is really, really important if you work in finance to make sure that everything you're doing, all the paperwork, all of the nuances, the back end
Oh,
stuff
trust me.
is
I get all of it.
is
It
yeah,
is
all done.
extremely
Yeah.
detailed.
And so the biggest misconception is that we're all the same, but all of us are independent contractors that use Northwestern as our broker dealer, which means we all run our business very differently.
Yep.
That's probably the biggest misconception, and it comes from a place of the fact that Northwestern Mutual used to be an insurance company only, and so it used to be an insurance
I think
company.
that's
Yeah, that's
I
it.
think that's it.
They used to be an insurance only company that had insurance agents, and so
Yep.
some people, especially who know of Northwestern Mutual and have for a long time, still see it in that light. That's been different for about 30 years now. So it's been a long time that it's been different, but it's still painted that way. They're also the highest rated insurance company. Northwestern Mutual insurance company on its own still is rated really highly. So it still exists. It's just not how it's structured for the actual financial planners who work under the Northwestern umbrella.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah,
All right.
good question.
I thought about that, but I was like, I need you to confirm.
Yeah,
But
it's a very complicated world, which a lot of people don't realize.
okay. And so, why do you feel um, people push back on? I think to your point, like cash value life insurance or
Mm,
different vehicles. Because I just feel like people don't really understand them well at a high
yeah,
level. And I feel like for us, like the first year, it took me a while to like really wrap my head around it and understand it. But obviously working with you for 3 years now, everything we do. So for information purposes, everyone, all of my assets that I own, except for my cash, under Aaron, everything at Northwestern Mutual. So I'm clearly bought in, and so I'd like for you to just give them a high level of
yeah.
like why they are confused about it.
You know, um, in my experience, the reason I find people are either hesitant or push back on anything, any sort of wealth accumulation tool or any sort of financial planning recommendation, is they know somebody who has had some sort of negative experience with something similar. They read something on the internet that they don't like. Um, and the most important reason is in human nature, we are pretty resistant to change, especially change that is uncomfortable, that we can't see the immediate benefit from. And so what tends to happen a lot in financial planning is we like to look for reasons not to do something. And the minute we read something negative or hear something negative, we jump on that reason to
So
back out
true.
of something.
Yeah.
Now, what I would encourage people to take time to reflect on whenever that happens is anything related to financial planning is unique to each and every person, which means like if you and I both have cash value life insurance, mine looks different than yours, and mine is implemented for different reasons than yours is, and it's
I think
probably
that's a big
structured
one.
differently. That's a
Yes,
huge
it's a big
one.
one. I
It's
think
a huge
everyone thinks
one.
they're all made the same,
Right. I
and
had a
there's so much that
it,
goes into it.
right. And I had a client yesterday say, "What's your rate of return on IRAs?" And I said, "Well, every single client I have, their IRA is different. So that I
Yeah.
can't answer that question. That there's not one answer."
Yeah,
And
it
I
takes some
think,
consultative like
yeah, it's
approach to it.
um and so it's hard because as a financial planner, your job is to understand that person's situation specifically and then make recommendations based on those specific factors.
Yes.
The internet and Google don't do that. And neither, even your most trusted family member may have had a really bad experience with something that seems very similar to what someone's recommending that you do, but it could be totally different. Um, the other thing I would encourage people to reflect on is I just had this conversation with my sister because she was reading things on the internet that scared her. And this is my
Yeah.
sister who what you would hope would trust me tenfold because I'm her sister.
Yeah.
Um, I had to remind her that this stuff I spend 40 plus hours a week talking about, learning about. There's a lot, it's common in our industry to have like advisors get together in study groups and talk about like obscure situations of things that you don't see very often or case consult we're constantly leveraging each other to learn. I mean, I spent literally thousands of dollars last year on educations and trainings and taking my CFP and all of this stuff. And so the time and energy and money that goes into understanding the world of personal financial planning,
Mm,
you cannot replicate that
right.
through self-research. You can't.
Correct.
You can't.
And I think it's always going to be like you're always going to read stuff about the
Right.
biggest
Anything.
companies or,
Anything.
there is stuff that is happening every single day. People are like, oh, well, they had a security breach, or everyone has one eventually,
And
or like,
everybody,
data leak. Like everyone
yeah.
has one
And
eventually.
everybody has a everybody has a disgruntled employee or disgruntled customer or
Yeah.
client who took the time to go write something on Google.
Yeah.
Um, Now, the other thing is this, the other thing to add to that though is like there are plenty of situations where you come across shitty advisors who make shitty recommendations and put people in a bad situation. And so
Yeah.
sometimes those things you read about or hear about are totally valid. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean they're going to happen to you too.
Yeah. But I think there's also a part of that personally for that person where, you can't leave it all to your financial advisor, right? Like you got to
Yeah.
come in with an opinion
Yeah.
and also be like a little knowledgeable about like what you're getting into. And then you both figure it out together. Like, hey, here's some of the
Together.
things I'm concerned about. Help me overcome those concerns. Now, if
Exactly.
you feel like the person's being disingenuous, like I guess that's different, but you're going to be able to sift through that a little bit. And like, I think that comes down to, like you said originally, is like the relationship. Like you and I
Yeah.
have built that relationship over the last 3 years where you don't even think about like what you can say.
Right. No, it's true though, and it's those are the clients who are willing to voice their concerns outright to me are those are the relationships I value the most because I'm never going to know how to help or how to meet
Yeah.
them in the middle if I don't know what's going through their minds. They
Yeah,
have to know when to tell me no or help me understand better or
for sure.
I can't read their minds. I just know what I recommend and
Yeah.
so
Okay. All right. Well,
okay.
look, we're running on time here. So
Okay.
I want to give you the opportunity. I give everyone at the end here
Okay.
to give a pointed piece of advice to tomorrow's voices.
save into your 401k the minute you start working out of college. And if you have the
Oh,
opportunity to do one earlier than that, do one earlier than that. If you have a Roth option, do it the Roth. Roth
yeah.
401k the minute you graduate college. I wouldn't be a good financial planner if I didn't say that.
Okay. Yes. Oh, also, so for you, what are you focused on in personal growth this year? One
Oh,
one thing, and one thing of professional growth this year.
oh my God, that's such a great question.
Yeah.
Um, I'll start.
Start with whichever one comes easier.
Okay, professional growth. We are working on what the best, most efficient path forward is to grow our team um,
Ooh.
in order to keep promises we've made to all the clients we've brought on the last 5 years. So,
Oh, nice. Okay.
we're focused on expansion and what the
That's a
path towards
broad, yeah, that's a pretty
expansion.
broad one that I feel like, I feel like you've been focused on, but I've never heard you like really articulate it. Like that's what you want to do. So
You know, telling someone what to do with their money every day is only half the job. You also have to
yeah,
stay like 5 years ahead of your clients so that you can make sure that they're on the right path and you know all the things that are coming down the road for them in the future. And so we're
yep.
just trying to figure out how do we grow the fastest, the best, most efficiently. So that's what we're focused on as a team this year.
Okay.
And
All right.
then
Personally.
personally, Jeff and I really want to start a family this year. So
Oh wow.
I think this
Wow.
is going to
Oh
be
yeah,
a,
we talked about
we
this. I
talked about
didn't think
this.
it was this year though.
Yeah,
So
this year.
wow.
So we are, my big focus is personally like giving myself the space to be excited about that, to think about that,
I
and
know. I can
to,
see. Yeah. So like Sammy dealt with that too, right? Where it's like
yeah,
you're driven, you're a career woman, and
yeah,
you want to be a mother, but you feel like you have to battle with both
both.
wants.
Yes.
And I think she did find a way to like really just like lean into it. Like, hey, these 9 months while I'm working, they're gonna be tough,
Yeah.
but the end is Beckham.
Yeah, right, right. And yeah, I think it's just
You know,
it's a matter of understanding that like one, it's all mindset, and two, it's a very, very small period of time in the grand scheme of things that
that's a good way to look
life is
at it.
uncomfortable, like
Yeah,
that you're uncomfortable and that things are going to feel different. And so I think my personal goal is to like give myself grace and the
yeah,
space to
that's good. You should, and we
enjoy this
talk
phase
about
of
that a
life.
lot in our house. Uh, the theme is always, why can't you have it all?
Mm,
Now, doesn't mean you can have it all
all
right
the
away and
time.
all the time, but if you just set your mind to it and be open to like having it all, it's going to be stressful to get it all. You, I believe you can have it all.
Yeah.
Now it's
It's all
also me
mindset.
speaking from a male perspective.
Yeah, I'll
With her
let you know how
pregnant,
I feel
she's
once
like, I wish you were
once I
pregnant.
give birth.
You can do it.
That's okay. We have an ongoing joke in our household that like we're 40-60 partners. Jeff's the 40, I'm the 60 because
Oh, there you go.
I have to
Yeah,
do the
yeah.
heaviest burden.
That's about as far as him and I can get. Like,
Yeah.
so well, good, so good.
Cool.
Awesome. I appreciate you taking the time to do it.
Yeah. Thanks for
I
having me on.
oh yeah, I know. So anyone out there, obviously I'm going to post this and everything, but I highly recommend. Aaron, I'll put your email out.
Yeah, that'd be
Just
great.
for you, you're right.
Yep.
Yep. So Aaron is far been more than just a financial advisor for me, as I mentioned, personal and professional coach. All the things like you do more than just advise. Like you're above and beyond the call. So
Thank you.
everyone, reach out. She is taking on clients and growing. So, and honestly, I think you'll have your own firm someday. That's just me throwing it out there. Um,
Deshaun, that's what I have right now.
no, I'm in it in a like you're gonna employ
Oh,
like um,
employ like 30 people.
you're gonna have like
Yeah.
a huge office. Like
That's the
you're
goal.
this like
That's the goal. That's the
yes,
goal. So cool.
awesome. All right,
All right.
I'll
Appreciate
take
you.
see ya.
Okay. Bye.